Hello, this is a video to go over the administration of the free HMIS comparable version of EmpowerDB. So this will involve the initial setup of your database, how to do things like add user accounts and run the report and ask for help. This will not include how to actually enter in data. If you're an administrator, you probably also want to watch that video as well, but we just thought it would make sense to keep that a separate video. So let's talk about how to get your very first task done, setting up the database itself. We're here on the EmpowerDB homepage. We're going to go to the FAQ sections. And here's our little FAQ write-up about all the different things that we thought you would want to be curious about with this whole free HMIS comparable database venture. And in the first section is the link to the initial setup page. So we just click this link, and here we are, the quick few questions we need to get filled out in order to have your own version of the database created. I'll go through each of these in this video now, but please make sure that when you're doing this, you take the time to read each of these sections so that you understand what's happening. They're all really important. First thing, your organization name. I'm going to call my sample organization a new place. All right, that's pretty easy, just the name. Now your organization site ID. So every distinct version of EmpowerDB has its own address for logging into the system. So my example here is if your organization was the Albuquerque Betterment Coalition, your site ID might be ABC, and you would thus log into EmpowerDB at empowerdb.com/abc. So you need to make up a site ID that is specific to your organization. This could be your initials, this could be like the first few words of your organization, so something like this. So I'm going to do a new place for this, and then it will let us know that a site ID is valid and available. So if you got something that says, sorry, it's taken, it is taken, and unfortunately you got to think of something else. All right, next bit, creating your encryption key. All the data that you will store on the EmpowerDB server will be encrypted with an encryption key that only you know. That protects the confidentiality of the information that you put online. Generally, if you're putting information into a cloud-based service and there's not a step like this where there's an encryption key that only you know, other people can go look at it. It's not a matter of what their policy is. They could say they have a policy that they're not going to go look at it, but they are fully able to look at it. With this setup here, your data will be on our servers, but we can't see it. When we see your text data, we see like little markers that say encrypted, encrypted. And so that's what we feel makes EmpowerDB a VAWA FIPSA compliant solution. So in order to have this happen, you need to create your own key. And so we've got a random key generator here, and we press this button, generate key. And sometimes I press a button, I say, I really don't like how many equal signs there are in there. That disturbs me. I'm going to press the key again. I don't like those letters. Okay, I guess that's fine. All right, so it's really, really, really important that you know that if you lose this encryption key, your data is gone forever. We cannot help you recover this encryption key. That's the whole point of zero-knowledge encryption, is that we can't help you with this. So to really, drive home the fact that you need to be sure you've got this key correctly, we've made it so that you must type in what you see above there. This is to help prevent, like here's a 1. I want to make sure that you're seeing this as a 1 and not an L. So if I were to go and type this in as an L, it's going to say, oh, not a match. And I go back through and I look and say, oh, I think that's actually a 1. We place that. Did I make another mistake? Yes, right here. See how important this is? Match. Okay, so you're typing this in to make sure you're seeing that correctly, but you're also going to want to make sure that you write this encryption key down somewhere safe, somewhere secure. This does not mean a Word file on your computer. This does not mean sending it an email or a text message. The only things that I feel like are safe and secure for keeping encryption keys are on a piece of paper that you keep in a lock safe, or in a real password manager, something like KeyPass, LastPass, OnePass. Okay, so you just cannot stress to you enough how important it is to make sure you copy this key down correctly and that you do not spread it through any digital means except for a password manager. All right, I'm going to pause the video so that I can write down this key myself. All right, I've got it written down. And by the way, it should go without saying, you're not expected to memorize this key. That's ridiculous. All right, next thing we have to do is we have to set up what your HUD-funded contracts or programs are. For a lot of people, it's really just going to be, maybe you have one shelter and all it is going to be you typing in here like, oh, Elm Street Shelter, and selecting which of the HUD project types that your shelter is. Maybe your HUD contract funds 3 different shelters, and so you would title this to be like contract A, and then in the system I'll show you a little bit like how to set it up so that inside contract A you can keep really good track of whether somebody's in shelter 1, shelter 2, shelter 3. Maybe you have multiple contracts, and that's totally fine. You would say add a new contract, and maybe contract B is transitional housing. So you can name these whatever you want, and it's possible later on, like let's say you suddenly get a new contract or you forgot that you needed to set something up a certain way, you can add in new contracts after the fact, but this is just getting you started with your first set. All right, and you'll select those project types. Make sure you note that there are certain project types that we do not support, the street outreach and services only project types. Next, your first user account. So you can create as many user accounts as you want. There's no charges for any of this, and there's no limits on the number of user accounts you can make. So this is really just getting you started with the first one. So let's do, I'm going to make and a password. Might I recommend not doing all those password shortcuts, using the same password over and again, breaking all the rules that should not be broken for a service like this. This is information keeping confidential information for survivors. And feel free to break those rules on your Netflix account or Facebook or whatever, but this should be important, and please make a strong password that that you can remember, but is not easy for somebody else to guess. Okay, so that's all the information we need. Oh, I don't want to put my personal all right, cat's out of the bag. StephenJenkins.com, my personal webpage. All right, info EmpowerDB.com. That's my email address. Great database. All right, your version of EmpowerDB has been created. So an email has been sent to my not personal email, and it's going to have a link that I need to click on in order to validate that I am a real person. So just wanted an extra step in here to make sure that robots weren't using the system. All right, so I'm going to pause it a second so I can get that link over on this computer. All right, I've clicked on the link that I was sent in the email. That email will also contain a bunch of other information that you might need to have around, reminders about not forgetting your encryption key, links to various things that you might need to know about. So keep that email just in case you need to access that in the future. So validation confirmed, hooray, that step is done. And now the next step of creating an access point. Every computer that needs to access your version of EmpowerDB will need to have an access point created for it. So what this is doing is that encryption key that only you know, that has to be put on the computer that you're using so that when your computer is communicating with EmpowerDB server, it has, the encryption key is there. So this is probably a step that you've never done before with any other service, and that's kind of telling, that kind of makes is what makes EmpowerDB the secure zero-knowledge encryption that it is, that there has to be some extra step like this. So you should only ever have to do this one time per computer. If you are having to do this again and again for the same computer, please click on this help file down here. So it's it's going to be one of 3 really common situations. That help file will explain to you how to fix it, and that will go away. I promise that will solve the problem. I'll try to give a quick explanation of what this process is right now, but if you want a longer explanation, you can watch this video on what's going on here. So there's 3 ways that you have to do this. The first way is you can send an approval request to a database administrator. So this is another administrator at your organization who is logged into the system and can go in and approve your request and automatically pass the key from their computer to your computer. Now, that's not going to be possible right now because there are no other administrators who can get on to your system. This is not including EmpowerDB support. We can't do this for you. Again, we don't have your encryption key, so we can't get it to you. So this is going to be something that you'll utilize after this very first step of, just you need to get in to use your database. So the second one is what we'll do here. For this first time, I'm a database administrator, and we can click there, and we can give a name for our computer. So we don't want to do anything too cute here. It's just Steven's laptop. I need to know what this does is if my laptop ever goes missing, someone else can log into the database and unapprove this computer from accessing the system. So it kind of deletes the encryption key off of the computer that's gone missing. It's a little extra security step. So if you get really fancy with your computer names, you won't be able to identify which computer you need to delete later. And now the encryption key. So I cheated, I broke the rules, I copied it into a file somewhere else, but you would be just entering this in manually from the key that you wrote down in the previous step. And then we're going to create the access point. It does some thinking to make sure it's valid. Yes, log in next. All right. Now we have username and password. So I'm pretty sure I did this. Yes. Okay. And now we are in. So the other method, I will kind of bring up an incognito window here and show you what the other method would look like. So we're back at this screen now. And if we would say send an approval request to a database administrator. So this window here, we're pretending is like a whole other computer from one of your coworkers. So I'm going to click there and I'm going to say, okay, I am on a laptop. And maybe now my name is Bob. We're just answering some questions to help form a name for your computer. And now I can submit a request. And then now back on this screen, so this is my original computer. I reload the page and I see that Bob's laptop is trying to gain access. And then you would put in your password in order to approve the request. All right, not your encryption key, just your account password to confirm that you are an actual administrator, not somebody who jumped on this computer and is being evil. All right, so approve that request. And then this screen should see in a couple seconds that that request got approved, and now the access point is created. So the encryption key transferred from this screen, this computer, over to this computer. Probably a little misleading because they're obviously on the same computer, but if this is meant to be the computer that's one of your coworkers, this is meant to be your own computer. All right, so that's the normal way that you would probably be spreading these encryption keys around. The last way is you can generate a one-time access code by mousing over up there, create a one-time access code, and say, you know what, I plan on using this access code right away to set up somebody else's computer. Generate a one-time code, and then now you can email this code to whoever you want, and they can do that third option, enter one-time access code to gain access. So it's kind of like a way to email your encryption key without emailing your encryption key. So this is not your encryption key, it's just a temporary code in order to get somebody access to the system. So that's a lot of like technical stuff. I really recommend, after the first, do the first one the way that I did it. I am a database administrator, enter your encryption key, and then all other ones do that encryption key approval process, and that's really the most straightforward and the most logical way of doing it. All right, that's all the boring technical things about how to actually get into the system. Now let's talk about how to do some basic administrative tasks. First one we want to go over is how to change the settings of the program, your different contracts and programs. So on the top right is going to be this link for database administration. Only database users with site administrator permissions will have access to this link and see it. So we're going to click there. And we're going to take a look at the programs management. So again, in EmpowerDB, we use the word program to kind of just mean like a generic bucket of people. And for the HUD HMIS world, that essentially means the contracts. So we had initially set up contract A and contract B. We need to go click there, and probably going to need to answer some other HUD related data that HUD wants you to have. So maybe the wording that you have the program for an EmpowerDB, you would actually want it to show up on the HUD report as something else. So maybe in the database you would say Elm Street Shelter, but when you generate the actual report for HUD, you want this project name to be in there. And maybe you started this thing back in November of 2010, and maybe you've ended recently. Yeah, so answer those questions there. The other thing that you will want to do is set up your room list. So let's say this was a situation where it was contract A served many different shelters. So we can come in here and say Elm Street Shelter was one. Okay, so we're setting up 3 different, rooms and as places that we can move people into for this contract. This is not something that HUD requires. This is something that we find is helpful for making sure that the data is entered properly. The other thing that you could do if you wanted is you could say, okay, let's say it's Elm Street Shelter. I want to do room 1, room 2, maybe you have like room 2A or something like that. And again, this just helps it make it so that when you're entering in information into the system, you can really clearly see that, okay, Jane Doe moved in on Friday and she was in room 2, and she is separate from Rebecca Smith, who moved in room 1 the other week. There's some other settings up here for program settings. You should not touch those. These are all set to make it so that this program behaves in exactly the way that it should be behaving for your version of the database. So aside from changing the name, please do not change anything here, even if you look at this and you think that it should be. Right. Save changes. That's editing program settings. The next thing that we can do is we can add new users. So if we click on staff list, we had 1 user account created by default in that first step that we did, but you can add as many user accounts as you like. So a user with site administrator permissions has this link, add new staff, up top. And then we can click here and we can say, I'm really bad at making up fake names. All right, and you put in first, last name, email address if you would like. It's not required, but it's heavily suggested. Password, please, again, make good passwords, and this link here will take you to an explanation of things that we suggest you do for good passwords. And then here's where you can say what the permission level of this person should be. So if this is going to be somebody who you want to be another administrator, you would do this. Standard user, you do that. Reporting only, you really shouldn't need for this version of the database. And let's say Tanya suddenly quits. you would come here and you would make her inactive. There's no way to delete a user. You would just make them inactive. So site administrator, you can make it so that they only have access to certain programs. So maybe you have 3 different shelters and you want to set it up so that you have a user, let's say a user is really just working in one shelter. You can make it so that they only have access to clients who are in that shelter. And that potentially could be good. And then if you want to put in their position, I don't know, whatever. So that's obviously not a required thing either. Add new staff. There's Tanya. Staff list. She's in there. If I ever want to go make changes, like I said, maybe she is gone or gets a promotion, then you can go in and change that. All right. The next thing we want to do is show you how to run the report. I really can't think of too many other things that you need to do for administration of the system besides how to get people on, how to set up the programs, and how to add the users. I'll go over at the end of the video just general tips of where to look for other information, but I think now is a good time to switch to the report, and I'm going to pause the video again so I can log into another version of the database that I've created that already has some test data. All right, here I am on this other version that I've already created with some sample data in here, and to really drive home the point, this is a separate version than what I instance of the database and what we did before. I made the background color a little bit different. In the background pattern, some birds. Did you know that's what you can do? Mouse over here, change the background color and the pattern. People tend to like that. All right, let's run the HUD report. On the top right, in the link section, anybody, not just administrators, can click on reports, and we'll have access to the HUD COC ESG point in time report. You will also have access to our basic reporting tools over here if you want to play around with those and just kind of get a little bit better idea of other things that EmpowerDB can do for you. There's a more complex reporting tool, the all-in-one report, that's normally down here, but decided it was best to keep that be something that only paid members would have access to. All right, we're going to click there, and we have these things that we need to set for how we want to run the report. We can select whether we want to run the COC or the ESG report. Make sure you are very clear which one of these you're running. We've had paying customers before get errors uploading their report when really it was just because they were picking the wrong one of these options. And then select which contract you want to run the report for. So in the sample version, I only have one program that I set up called Residence Program. If you had multiple contracts, you would see that list here to pick from, and then the dates that you want to use. So I'm just going to do a full year. All right. Also on this page is a report changes log. So if there was ever an update made to the report, or if we ever found any issues with how the report was generating numbers that were on the minor side, if there was a major issue, we would send you an email and say that something terrible happened and all your data was bad. But that's never happened to us. It's always just kind of these like really odd situations that come up of like, oh, somebody moved in here and then switched rooms and then went to there and then that, and then it was showing up as this. This is just kind of our admission that we are human beings, and we just want to be fully open and transparent about how we're changing, making updates to the system and things like that. So that would be if we found errors in the report, or if we made a change to the system as per HUD's requirements, we would put all that information in this report changes log. Continue, and now here's our report. It's going to start off with a list of all the clients that qualify for this report. So really it's going to be whoever had a program enrollment for this contract during the time frame that you specified, and understanding what that means and how to add in program enrollments. That'll all be covered in the general training video that will accompany this. So this is really just to kind of give you an overview of, make sure that everybody who you think is included, should be included, is here, and tell you, give you some like basic information about how the system has evaluated the record. These are things that are really key in determining how these clients appear in different sections of the report. So we want to make sure you can see that, okay, this person is definitely being counted as a stayer. Their income, nobody's income has really changed much. And any client who's listed in yellow, these are people who have missing information. So it is possible to submit your HUD report with information missing. Every one of the HUD's tables does have a category for information not entered or something like that. But generally it seems like you should probably have all the information that you can have filled in, entered in system. And so you just click on here and go fill in the information that you have. All right, so we'll save changes that, and now this has updated a little bit, so we're getting closer to 100%, and again, the goal is to have everybody at 100%. Now, as you scroll down, we have each of the tables on the HUD report. So we do our best to put explanations, little descriptions up here to give you an indication about what this table is, if it's not completely obvious by the title. Almost every number in here you can click on, and you can get a sense of, let's scroll past some of these weird ones, who makes up this number. So who are these 6 adults without children? And you can go in here and you can look and make sure that that's the right thing. And maybe you would come back and say, wait, Tanya Smith, that's not an adult. And you'd realize, oh, we entered in Tanya's information wrong. It was meant to be 2016. All right. So this, now when we refresh, now it's updated. So we've got a person in there and then a child here. So everything is now in place. All right, so that helps you make sure that the report is all accurate. There could be descriptions like in the income sections where we felt like it would be a little too much to explain exactly everything of what's happening in this table. So instead we put the explanation in this alternate documentation file. So you can click there and read the information about how the system is generating a certain thing. And yeah, a lot of fun stuff. Make sure you go through and read everything and feel like the data is all where it should be. And once you have done that, over on the right is this export data button. Click there and the system downloads a zip file. So that's probably getting up in your download items folder, and that zip file is all you need to upload to Sage. So HUD does offer a test version of Sage where you can, if you have any doubts that the system is going to do what you need to do, you can, just go set everything up, maybe put in like 2 or 3 fake families even to say that, just to have some data in here, do an export and upload this file to the Sage test site. The link to that is in our FAQs if you don't know what that is. And you can see for yourself that the files that the EmpowerDB generates here are completely valid and work just fine. So yeah, there's a couple other things I want to show you on this report is, let's say you wanted to run a point in time report. So let's do that. In order to do a point in time report, you just set the date range to be 1 single day. So I want to do a point in time of November the 1st. Continue, and then now here's all the information that would go on the point in time report. Right, and you would copy this down into the format that HUD provides. There's no export tool as of yet for this. One thing I just realized, let's say you're going in and you're putting in some test clients just to see how things go. You feel like it looks good and you want to go delete those test clients. You can go look them up. Client doesn't know. That was one of my test clients I set up. And database administrators on the right will see merge and delete. So you can say, I'm just going to delete this person, put in your password to verify that you are who you say you are. And they will be gone. So that's one thing you might want to be able to do. And if you have duplicate clients, you could use this merge feature. So maybe it turns out that client doesn't know was the same person as information missing. Proceed with merge, and you can pick, okay, is their first name really client doesn't know, or is it information missing? We can go through and do all that. Okay, so let's select which field you want to keep. And then there's that. Now I want to talk about what to do if you need support. Let's say you're going to run this HUD report, and we do something like this. And you're looking at maybe here, and you're saying, wait, why is Cheryl showing up as an unknown household type? I have definitely verified 100 different times that she should be, she's entered into the system as a adult, and I have no idea why she's showing up here. We really hope that you take some time to make sure that it's not a data entry error on your part. But let's say you've done that and you're positive that there's something's wrong here. So what you're going to do is go to the home page, go to database support. You will not actually see that error message up there. And here we are with just a list of all our outstanding support topics. We'll come and say add a new topic, and you will be asked to make up a subject and pick from one of these categories of what your issue is. So we've kind of had to limit the amount of categories that you can pick from for this version of the database. So paid members will see other categories like, oh, I want to request a change to your system, or I just want to talk about something. But here we kind of need to know, all right, if you got a problem with the funder report, you need to click there and say, all right, I've got incorrect numbers. And now it's going to tell you what information we need from you in order to look at your risk request. So it's going to say link to the report. So up here on this other tab, I'll kind of bring this down. Here's the link to this report. You just need to click there, copy it, and paste into there. All right, so that's the report I'm on. You're going to say which section am I curious about? So this is, we always encourage you to copy directly from the database so that it's really clear. There's no ambiguity about which things that you are having telling us about. Link to client entry that should/shouldn't be included. So we are curious about Cheryl. So I'm going to click on Cheryl's record, copy her link. By the way, she's an unknown household because she has date of birth is missing, and so we can't tell if she's an adult or not. And so you paste that in there so that we can see that that's the client that you're having issues with. Never ever tell us client names. We actually can't see client names. We can kind of only see, traces of the client information that don't tell us anything really about them, but just kind of give us an indication about why there might be an error. And then you can give us some sort of explanation about why you think that this client should or shouldn't be included. So like maybe you'd say, she is clearly an adult because of what I see in this link, blah, blah, blah. All right. And then if there's anything else that you want to tell us, you could do that and put it there. All right, so please take a look around at some of these other categories to see if these other categories are fit the kind of request that you're having. And as we explain more thoroughly in the FAQ section, please just be prepared that we're going to really just send you one of three responses back. Either, oh, we see the error, thanks so much for letting us know when we fixed it, or this is not an error on your part, on our part, this is an error on your part. Here's a list of various things that people usually do wrong so that you can go and take a look at them. Please go see if any of those are it. Or we're going to send you an auto response back saying you have not given us enough information to figure out what's going on. here are the different types of things that we need you to make sure you give us in order to help us out. So we really hope that you understand that limited type of support is all, what we would like to do for offering a free product like this, and you don't get mad at us for not talking to you directly. We wish we could talk to you directly, but sometimes there's too many people to talk to directly in a single day. So submit the new topic, and it goes in. Here's our little breakdown of everything that we just said, and then once we respond, you will get an email of our response, and you can either respond via email or log back into the support system. You can see up here on the top how we flagged your request. So it's just came in, so it's flagged as a new request, and we might go and flag it later. And you might see that it's been assigned to different people in EmpowerDB to help you out. All right, so that's the support system. The last thing I want to show you is the database documentation section. So we can click here. Oops. And here's a list of all of the documentation articles that are in here. So a lot of these things might be irrelevant to your version of EmpowerDB because it's such a limited scope, but it still could potentially be helpful for you to go through and look and see what else EmpowerDB can do, or answer any other questions you're having. For example, these general training videos and administrator training videos could help a lot with how to do other administrative work inside of the database. These quick skill videos kind of talk about like merging clients a little bit in more detail, things like that. And then these reporting documentation articles could also be helpful. So see if you can take a look around in there. Here's an error. An email alert just appeared on my screen saying somebody got an error, and whatever this is will be fixed immediately. All right, so really that should be it. We really hope that this is helpful for you and that your organization can take advantage of this system and avoid having to spend who knows what amount of money on a whole other database just to fulfill a reporting requirement. And wish you all the best. All right, thanks so much for watching.